The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a final golden glow over the deserted town. Shadows stretched across the deserted town of Silent Hollow, elongating and merging into a blanket of darkness. Dust devils danced in the twilight, swirling and twisting like restless spirits. They were the only things moving in the eerie stillness that enveloped the town. Billy, a lanky boy of 13 with a shock of red hair, biked down Main Street, his silhouette a lonely figure against the fading light. His tires crunched on the gravel, the sound echoing in the empty streets. The air grew colder with each passing moment. A shiver ran down his spine, a mix of the evening chill and an unshakable sense of dread. He pedaled faster, trying to outrun the creeping fear. Silent Hollow wasn't always this quiet. It was once a lively place, filled with the sounds of laughter and life. It used to bustle like a scene out of Leave It to Beaver, with kids playing stickball in the streets and families having cookouts in their backyards. Now it was a ghost town. The streets, once filled with joy and activity, were now desolate and empty. The lingering emptiness was palpable, a stark contrast to the vibrant community it once was. Now it was a ghost town, almost. Billy glanced over his shoulder, his heart pounding in his chest. The silence was oppressive, pressing down on him like a weight. He could have sworn the shadows were moving, twisting into menacing shapes that seemed to reach out for him. The town, once a place of safety and comfort, now felt like a living nightmare. He reached the top of Cemetery Hill, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The climb had been steep, but the view was worth it. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the landscape, and the air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. The old graveyard loomed before him, a maze of crooked headstones and overgrown weeds. Each stone seemed to tell a story, a tale of lives long past and forgotten. The atmosphere was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of leaves. The wind howled through the trees, bending their branches as if they were whispering secrets to one another. It was a sound that sent chills down his spine, a reminder of the unseen forces that lurked in the shadows. He thought he heard voices, faint and distant, carried on the wind. They were just on the edge of his hearing, tantalizingly close yet frustratingly out of reach. Faint whispers carried on the wind, growing louder with each passing moment. They seemed to be calling to him, beckoning him to come closer, to uncover their secrets. He stopped his bike and listened, straining to make out the words. The whispers were growing more insistent, more urgent, as if they had something important to tell him. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, filling the air with their eerie chorus. They seemed to be coming from all around him, surrounding him in a cocoon of sound. They seemed to be coming from the heart of the graveyard, from the oldest and most decrepit part of the cemetery. It was a place that had always been shrouded in mystery and fear. Curiosity, that old devil, tugged at him, urging him to go closer, to find out what the whispers were saying. It was a temptation he found hard to resist. Billy leaned his bike against a gnarled oak tree, its twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead. He took a deep breath and stepped into the graveyard, the shadows closing in around him. Each step felt like a journey into the unknown, a descent into a world of darkness and mystery. The shadows seemed to press in on him, suffocating him with their oppressive weight. It was as if the very air was thick with the presence of the past, of the souls that had once walked these grounds. He felt a cold hand on his neck, a touch that sent a jolt of fear through his body. He spun around, his heart pounding in his chest. He spun around, nothing. The whispers grew clearer, their words taking shape in his mind. They spoke of shadows and darkness, of ancient secrets best left buried. They spoke of shadows and darkness, of ancient secrets best left buried. It was a warning, a plea for him to turn back, to leave this place and never return. Teenager as Billy. "Who's there? Show yourself!" His voice echoed through the graveyard, a challenge to the unseen forces that surrounded him. He stood his ground, determined to uncover the truth, no matter the cost. He followed the whispers deeper into the graveyard, each step echoing in the stillness of the night. The air was thick with an unsettling chill, and the moon cast long, eerie shadows that danced around him. They led him to a clearing at the back, where a single mausoleum stood, half hidden by overgrown ivy. The structure seemed ancient, its stone walls weathered by time and neglect, yet it exuded an aura of foreboding. The name Blackwood was etched in the stone above the entrance, the letters worn but still legible. It was a name that carried weight, a name that had been whispered in fear and curiosity for generations. Billy had heard stories about the Blackwood House, tales of ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and unexplained events that had plagued the town for years. The house was a source of endless fascination and dread. Local legend said it was haunted by the spirits of the Blackwood family, who had mysteriously disappeared one stormy night, leaving behind a legacy of whispers and shadows. The townsfolk spoke of lights flickering in the windows and shadows moving behind the curtains, even though the house had been abandoned for decades. He stared at the old house, its silhouette stark against the twilight sky. The mansion seemed to loom over him, its presence almost palpable, as if it were watching him, waiting for him to make a move. It was a Victorian mansion, 3 stories tall, with a wraparound porch and a turret that scraped the sky. The architecture was grand yet ominous, a testament to a bygone era of opulence now shrouded in mystery and decay. The windows were boarded up like blind eyes staring out at the world. The boards were old and splintered, and through the gaps he could almost feel the house's dark secrets pressing against the barriers, yearning to be free. He felt a strange pull, a compulsion to go inside. He knew he shouldn't. Every rational part of his mind screamed at him to turn back, to leave this place and never return. But something deeper, something primal, urged him on. But the whispers urged him on. They seemed to wrap around him, a seductive promise of uncovering the truth, of solving the mystery that had haunted the town for so long. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for what lay ahead, and stepped forward into the darkness. Billy walked towards the house. The closer he got, the louder the whispers became. Now they were almost screams, screams of terror and despair. He reached the front porch. The floorboards creaked under his weight. He tried the doorknob, locked. He peered through a crack in the wood. He saw a faint light flickering inside. Someone was home, or something. He raised his fist and pounded on the door. Teenager, as Billy. "Hello, is anyone there?" The whispering stopped. The light went out. Billy was left in darkness, his heart pounding in his chest. Billy took a step back from the house. He wasn't sure he wanted to know who or what was inside. He turned to leave, but something blocked his way. A dark shape, tall and thin, stood at the bottom of the porch steps. It was like a shadow had come to life.
"Who's there?" Billy's voice trembled.
The shadow didn't answer. It moved towards him, gliding silently across the porch. Its eyes glowed red in the darkness. Billy felt a surge of terror. He backed away, stumbling over his own feet. He had to get out of here, now! He turned and ran towards the back of the house. He could hear the shadow creature close behind, its breath rasping in his ear. He reached the back door and tried the knob. Locked. He jiggled it, pulled at it, but it wouldn't budge. He was trapped. He spun around to face his pursuer. The shadow creature stood in the doorway, blocking his escape. Its claws scraped against the wooden floor. The red eyes burned into Billy's soul. He could feel the creature's icy breath on his face. It reeked of decay and something else, something ancient and evil.
Billy closed his eyes and braced himself for the worst.
He opened his eyes a sliver. The creature was gone. He was alone. He let out a sigh of relief. Maybe it was all in his head. He turned to go back inside. He had to get to the bottom of this mystery. He reached for the doorknob. A cold, bony hand clamped over his wrist.
He screamed and jerked away. He stumbled backwards, tripping over a loose floorboard. He landed hard on his back. He looked up. The shadow creature stood over him, its red eyes burning with malevolent glee. It reached for him with its long, sharp claws. Billy knew this was it. This was the end.
But just as the creature was about to strike, a rooster crowed in the distance. The first rays of dawn pierced through the darkness. The creature hissed, a sound of pure rage and frustration. It vanished before Billy's eyes, melting back into the shadows from whence it came.
I lay there for a moment, catching my breath. Slowly, I got to my feet, my body aching from the fall. I looked around. The backyard was empty. The only sound was the chirping of birds.
He limped back to his bike and rode home as fast as he could. He didn't tell anyone what he had seen. No one would believe him. They'd just think he was making up stories again. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something evil was lurking in Silent Hollow, and it was only a matter of time before it returned. He started having nightmares. He would wake up in a cold sweat. The image of the shadow creature with its glowing red eyes burned into his mind. He knew he couldn't ignore it any longer. He had to do something. But what? Days turned into weeks. The town remained eerily quiet. The shadows seemed to grow longer, stretching out like grasping claws. People whispered about a curse. They said the spirits of the Blackwood family were restless. They were seeking revenge. Billy watched as fear spread through the town like a virus. People were afraid to leave their homes at night. They were afraid of the shadows, afraid of what lurked within them.
The spirits of the Blackwood family are restless. They're seeking revenge.
He knew he had to act fast, before it was too late, before the shadows consumed them all. One night, Billy saw something that chilled him to the bone. He was looking out his bedroom window when he saw a dark figure moving through the streets. It was the shadow creature. And it wasn't alone. There were others now, dozens of them, slithering through the shadows, their red eyes glowing like embers in the night. They were heading out of town, spreading out like a plague of darkness. Billy watched in horror as they disappeared into the night. He knew then that Silent Hollow was just the beginning. The shadows were coming, and they were coming for everyone.
The shadows are coming, and they're coming for everyone.